The blood oozed down the white walls of a cozy brick cottage in Atlanta, Georgia in 1987. An elderly couple watched in horror as blood started filling in the cracks in the wooden floors, seeping into the rugs. It filled every crevice. The news reporters called it the Blood House on Fountain Drive. What was the source? Let's dive into this case in story form. Minnie Winston, who was 77 years old, started a bath for herself one late foggy Tuesday night. It was a quiet evening. Minnie was a frail-looking woman, and her body was exhausted from taking care of her husband. After 30 minutes, Minnie steps out of the bathtub, and her right foot landed in a thick puddle on the ground. Thinking she spilled bathwater, Minnie went down to wipe her foot, only to realize that it was blood. When she looked down, she saw the liquid seeping up through the cracks on the tile floor. Her first thought was maybe something happened to her husband, Willie, so she called out his name. No response. Minnie ran out into the hallway to see what was going on, but she froze. The blood covered every surface in the hallway. It lined the baseboards leading into the kitchen. It seeped down the white walls. It was everywhere. She ran into their bedroom, and her husband was fast asleep, so she shook him awake. Willie woke up confused as Minnie told him to come out into the hallway to see what she was seeing. They were both horrified and confused at what they saw. The smell of rust and iron filled the hallway as puddles of blood filled it. The late shift homicide squad at the Atlanta Police Department. When the phone rang, one of the detectives picked up, repeating what was told to him. Blood is coming down the walls? There's no body? The detective informed the squad of Minnie and Willie's problem, which left them speechless. Brenda Dipple, a lab tech, and other officers went to that house on 1114 Fountain Drive. EMTs were called to make sure that Minnie and Willie weren't hurt, but Willie told them that he and his wife were just fine. Along with police, the property managers of the house were also summoned, a father-son duo, both named Alfred. Once they arrived, Alfred asked Alfred Jr. to check the pipes. Maybe one of them burst? They were thinking maybe it was a foreign substance leak, and that's all it was. But after inspection, there wasn't a burst pipe or a leak at all. Father and son were both confused, not knowing where the substance was coming from. One detective asked Minnie how her eyesight was, and she could sense that he was being condescending. "I know what I saw," Minnie said sternly. "Well, was the house locked?" "Yes. The alarm was even set," Minnie replied. The officers weren't convinced. They thought maybe someone planted latex paint in the couple's home. When Brenda Dipple walked into the home, she felt uneasy. All the officers were looking to her for help. She took out her camera and started taking photos of the blood splatter all over the house. As she took more photos and notes, she began to feel something in the pit of her stomach. Fear. Brenda's job could be gruesome, and she was used to it. But this was different. Being at that house made her feel on edge. She started collecting the blood samples to send them off to get tested. And when the results came back, it was indeed blood. Type O human blood. Both Minnie and Willie were type A. Detectives had seen nothing like this, so they put a call out to the blood banks in the area. Maybe someone had stolen blood. And at this point, the local papers had picked up the story, and the public was curious. A blood house mystery? Crowds piled outside the house, hoping to get a glimpse inside. Reporters, photographers, neighbors, they all wanted a peek. Was this a hoax? What was going on? Many people thought that there was something supernatural about the situation. What was once a tranquil home was now filled with horror. Because it couldn't be explained, supernatural enthusiasts thought maybe it was a parasitic entity that attached itself to the house. Police officers weren't really buying it, though. When they asked Willie and Minnie if they experienced anything supernatural besides that, they said no. 22 years living inside that house, they'd experienced nothing like this before. Detectives speculated that maybe, just maybe, that this was a cruel prank that was committed by the Winstons' daughter. Their daughter worked at a hospital, so she had access to blood. But they also thought that Willie, who was on dialysis, had access to blood himself, so maybe he did it. The Winstons and their children were on poor terms. They were estranged. It could be a possibility that it was their children, but not likely. Minnie also told reporters that it was just mud and rust, that's all, even though lab tests revealed that it was human blood. Time went by, and the house never bled again. To this day, this case is unsolved. No one knows where the blood came from or how it got there. What do you think? Could it be a supernatural incident? or a very cruel prank. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.